Elliott, your correspondent from the dark side, reporting about what's happened in between the time we saw myself indicating what Howard was doing over in Japan. Howard had stormed out of a casino in Las Vegas. So what happened then is Heather packed and went back to New York. When she arrived back in New York, after trying to calm herself down with her, trying to teach herself to play a large ukulele, she got a message from Howard from Japan saying, please come and meet me in Maui. She had never been to Maui, and she was impressed that he had reached out. So, less than 18 hours after arriving back in New York City, she began to pack to go across the country and across the ocean. The problem with Heather packing is she has more separation anxiety about objects than she does about people. And so packing, it's a very high anxiety ritual for her. So what she has to do sometimes is touch all her favorite objects. She cannot take along her Kaiser glove hand. She cannot. So you're not coming. And that's a feeling of grief that she feels, like a pulling feeling, or kind of an empty feeling. Our Lady of Guadalupe cannot go. She can't be traveling with all these things because the things she most feels bereft about losing contact with when she travels, things in addition to her non-snow globe, are her shoes. As a category, the shoes are the most awful thing to have to leave behind. So these are not coming to Maui. These are not going to Maui because she only just has so much room in her baggage. So those are the things. You guys are not coming. You're coming. Howard has told her that he will send a helicopter for her when she gets to the island she's flying to make it very, very easy for her. So she proceeds to get the earliest flight she can out of New York. She proceeds to put on her foxiest shoes, which seem very, very apt to be wearing to anywhere in the Pacific. And she decides she's going to get patted down at the airport because she really feels like she wants to be touched. She presents herself at JFK as a wishing to be patted down person, and they find a policewoman to pat her down. And you know, when you're patted down, every part of you is touched. You're patted down standing up. You're patted down sitting. She slept on the flight to Hawaii, and indeed there was a helicopter waiting for her to take her to a house that Howard had rented. When she arrived, she found Howard with a very handsome man about Howard's age, and she was introduced to him. His name was Woodruff Trade, and Howard said, Heather, I want you to meet Ruff, who I spent my time at Harvard Business School sharing a house with and sharing a bed with. So Heather, not knowing what else to do or say, puts out her hand and shakes Ruff's and looks him into his handsome green eyes and says to Howard, is there a yoga mat nearby? And he said, yes, there is. And she said, I need to go to wherever room I'm sleeping in because I really need to do some yoga. And she's basically twisting out all the achiness from the airplane and all the achiness from holding her jaw in one position so as not to scream for the last 3 days. Because it may seem that these people are not suited or that relationships are impossible. So what I want to suggest is that if you can use your imagination and try to understand what's lovable in Howard vis-a-vis Heather and what's lovable in Heather from Howard's point of view, that maybe we all look at how we use our imaginations in order to maintain relationships that can function in the first place. Making ourselves a story up about this other person and then falling in love with them, and that love lasts until we get too much information about the other person that compromises our belief about who the other person really is. And you use your imagination to make this work between Heather and Howard, because right now she's found out that he had a homosexual relationship, long, significant homosexual relationship, and had stormed off when she told him she thought his ex-wife was so foxy that her body also thought so. So she did her yoga. She assumed the guys were having dinner. She got some texts from Howard saying, please join us, but do as much yoga as you need. She ate an enormous amount of popcorn, which Howard, which is why he was so confusing to love, because he was so lovable and so exasperating at the same time, had stocked the little kitchen in her little cottage with all the things she loved: dark chocolate, popcorn, protein shakes. So she ate popcorn, and she was not a person that ate popcorn gracefully and elegantly. And then she felt like a huge volleyball had invaded her midsection. At that point, she wandered over to the bigger house where the main dining room was, and Howard and Woodruff were finishing their dinner. Howard shook Woodruff's hand, put his arm around Heather's shoulders, and guided her back to her cottage, and was so tender with her, and held her face and looked at her so sweetly. And he undressed her, and they got into the bed, and he made lovely, tender love to her. And a long time was going by during this coital embrace, and he wasn't coming, and she said, "You're not coming. Is something wrong?" And he said, "No, it's because something is so right, and it just feels so good to be with you." So that's what happened that night, and Heather was looking forward to wondering what was going to happen the very next day, the very next week, and we too will find that out next time. So thanks for tuning in, being interested in them. Thanks.
She wraps her legs around his waist, places her hands upon his face, whispers, "This must be our last embrace." She draws him close, her lips alive, their bodies pulse, their voices cry as they tumble to the bed and drift away. And round and round and round they spin, him and her and her and him, lost in what will